Hey there, X. Jonathan here. I realize we're continuing the 250th year of the birth of America, the United States. And so, with that in mind, in the back of my mind, of course, I want to say good things about the United States. However, I do have a few criticisms. Um, you know, I, it, in my own opinion, of course, I think the United States is one of the best countries in the world to live in. Uh, when I was growing up, we were known to have, you know, voting rights for people of all socioeconomic backgrounds. We had upward mobility. You could start at the bottom and rise to the top. Um, there weren't so many. Um, I guess what would you call caps or having to increase taxes and all that. The American experiment has been one of the most fascinating, the most interesting on this planet. And I think within the recent years, the recent decades, at least after the rise of the internet, is that we began to witness so many whistleblowers, uh, starting with Mr. Julian Assange in his Ecuadorian embassy. Uh, we began to see the Edward Snowden types. We began to see you know uh, speaking on topics such as the NSA or the National Security Agency, and the all the implications with that. With our mobile phones and the internet and cellular data. And then there is, Mr. Formerly Mr. Bradley Manning, now Chelsea Manning, and she was known to um, send and pass on some, crucial, sensitive government information to WikiLeaks, and of course, one way to frame that question is, well, why are there so many whistleblowers at this current time in history? In current events on the news. And then the other question is well, what is our legislation and governance doing incorrectly that there has to be so many whistleblowers? You know, and when I was you know in college and growing up and experiencing uh, these current events and all this political all these political things happening in the news stream. Um, when I was experiencing these things, I was wondering why. Yeah, why were there so many whistleblowers? Um, and then you also experience with certain with only a select few leaders within the United States. Not all of them. There are a few good ones. Predominantly, there are good leaders in the United States. Good presidents. Um, um, Most of them typically, um, you know, uh, get entangled in foreign wars and nation building, and at times the three-letter agencies will go into other nations and take out their leaders, and then that either makes things better or that makes things worse. And then there are war hawks in one end of the political spectrum that saber rattling and continuing to uh, uh, beat the war drums, so to speak. And then there are the what you would call the democratic socialists on the other spectrum, other end of the spectrum, and it feels like there's no other choice but to vote for either extremist party. And I think at this rate, it's very alarming. I think there are things that we have to, uh, we really have to continue to educate ourselves as a citizenry, as a populace, and to be involved in the civic process, the political process. If not at the national level, then at our own grassroots and local politics level, because things have gotten so out of hand, and there's so many there are countless whistleblowers that even dating back to the time of when civil rights leaders such as Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights leaders uh, being being bullied and uh, um, bullied and harassed by the FBI, and he isn't an unusual case. There are several people in history that have done net good for the people and for the citizenry that have been harassed at work, at best, perhaps tortured, um, in one way or other by the oligarchs and the three-letter agencies. But anyway, I want to leave on a positive note and say that I'm also hopeful for the future because this next generation, the Generation Z, has been able to witness all of this on YouTube, on Facebook videos, and their reels. Um, if they haven't been caught up to what has happened in the United States up until this point, the countless wars, Afghanistan, Vietnam, Nicaragua, Bosnia, Kosovo, all of that, all of the above, the wars that we don't need to be involved in, and yeah, I think the culture is beginning to be more aware and cognizant of the nature of the Leviathan, of the beast, and there's 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 more hope than there is you know uh, uh, misery and despair. So I'm hopeful for the future.